What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Will, that's Blake, and today we're here to talk some Critical Role, which it's been a year. Literally.
It's been a long time. I kept having to double check that. I was like, was this really when the last one was? Because it was like a month ago or something.
Actually,
or like
yeah.
3 weeks.
Wait, now that I say that, it wasn't last year, was it? This episode was in January, I think.
Yeah, it was. Why didn't I say the date on here? What the heck?
Yeah. I think this was the first Thursday in January.
It says 2 weeks ago, but it definitely wasn't. It was definitely 3 weeks ago. Probably 3 weeks tomorrow would be my guess.
Okay, that makes sense. But so my last year joke does not work because this did happen in January. But
I thought you were just exaggerating, but if you were locking in on that joke, then I would say.
I was going for like the double entendre of like, it's been forever, but like also literally last year. But no, it wasn't. Yeah. It just feels like forever because we had the sick week, a Candela week. So it was another 3-week break after just having a 3-week break.
Right.
So yeah, anyways, all that to say, we're back today to talk some Critical Role. Feels like a long time because it has been a long time. But before we dive into the huge here, I feel like there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. But Sunday Fun Days. Well, first the Discord. You can find it linked down in the description below. Great place to chat, hang out, theory craft, but also Sunday Fun Days, which are watch parties we typically host every Sunday evening. So I don't think we've decided what our next one's going to be yet. Right. But come join us for those. In our live stream, we do a weekly live stream tomorrow on Fridays. It's not tomorrow.
Yes.
That's 2 days from now.
Yep.
Fridays at 1 p.m. We just, kind of talk about whatever. And there's a place in the Discord for specific questions that you would like to lob our way for that as well. But
bring them on.
Yeah,
bring on
please
the heavy-hitting questions.
Please do. Give us, all the socio-political... never
maybe
mind. Not those.
Never mind, actually.
But I did remember what I wanted to say originally, which is something we talked about in our last episode, not of Critical Role, but of Worlds Beyond Number. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing us say this, but for you Critical Role folks out there that haven't given this show a chance yet, you need to. Blake and I we just recorded an episode about that 2 days ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It's a great show, and I would love for it to, get some more support, get some more eyes on it. Because it's great. So y'all should watch it. And we will probably continue to plug that. Because yeah. And anything else besides those normal things?
I don't think so. I think that's it.
Oh, not that this is the time or place to talk about it, but I did just see that apparently Hasbro is in talks to sell the D&D IP to Tencent.
Yeah.
So,
no.
Yeah.
No.
So we might need to make like another video about that, or maybe talk about that on Friday or something.
Oh, I hope that's not. I had not heard that. I hope that's not the case, man. Tencent would be the last company that I would trust to take over D&D.
Which apparently Tencent is like the owner of Larian or something.
Okay. Well, if it was so that there's two things to talk about here, and I won't be long-winded because I don't think you wanted us to get super in the weeds on it. There are independent companies that have Tencent as a majority investor in them. Larian Studios is one example. Grinding Gear Games, who does Path of Exile, is another example. Like that kind of situation I'm okay with, where it's like, hey, we want to have a majority stake in the company, but like you still kind of do your own thing. If it was like Tencent themselves, I would be pretty apprehensive about that.
Yeah, I think it's the latter, because I think they like approached Larian due to the success of Baldur's Gate 3, but Larian was like, we cannot afford to buy the D&D IP, and so they like handed it off to Tencent. Now that being said, this is like me just skimming an article right before we sat down, so it might not even be accurate. I might not be all the information, but potentially something interesting for us to talk about at another time.
Interesting. It would be the right time to sell it. One, because Hasbro's incredibly incompetent, but two, one D&D comes out this year, so it could be in their mind they see D&D at the peak of its value
Yeah,
later this year. So I could see that being the case.
true.
But anyway,
Um,
interesting.
but yeah, so other than that, I think that tackles all of our typical announcements, etc. So without further ado, let's dive into the reason we're here today. And I know you guys know the drill by now, but before we get into our discussion of Critical Role, we are first going to give a recap of it. And we cut that out and host it separately as its own video for your catching up convenience. So if you happen to find yourself on just the recap video and you want to hear our full discussion on the episode, it will be linked down below. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. This is Critical Role episode 82 of Campaign 3, Rush for the Bloody Bridge.
Ooh, baby, we here.
Boom. So, the episode picks up, and we've got the party sneaking toward the Malleus Key to the Bloody Bridge. And as they're approaching, they're obviously doing it stealthily. They basically come across this Aormaton warder that's patrolling around, and the rest of the defenses in this area have been distracted by the illusions, which, if you'll recall, this was all part of the plan.
Right.
We've got the illusions of like the beasts with the meat wagons to make it look like real blood and everything, attacking the opposite side to buy Bell's some space. So Chetney decides to go invisible and kind of trek ahead into this mini encampment where there's like two tents with this, again, Aormaton warder patrolling.
Right.
And inside the first tent, it's empty except for one single Vanguard member that seems like rather nervous. So Chetney ducks out of that one, goes to check the other one, and no one's in the other tent. So the gang tries to plan what to do, and this episode is full of a lot of planning what to do.
Very much.
So after a bit of planning, the rest of the group kind of joins Chetney in the tent with the person in it. And they essentially try to deceive and intimidate this person, being like, hey, why aren't you helping? Like, you need to get out there and help. And the first, I think Imogen is the one that does this intimidation and doesn't roll very well. But then Ashton kind of steps in and adds to it and rolls well enough that it is successful. So that person takes out of the tent. They plan for a bit more. And Chetney actually puts one of the EMPs that they got from Percy on that Aormaton that was warding around. So they do that, plan a bit more, and head further toward the key. And it's at this point that they run into like another set of guards, essentially. I believe there are 3 of them. And they again are struggling deciding what to do, but essentially Chetney just takes upon himself to go and attack one of these Ryloran guards. Specifically, I think it's a Juggernaut. And right as he does this, like drops invisibility and attacks, Imogen kind of comes up and changes the plan. So she comes up and basically is like, stop, and like is basically pretending that like Chetney is a bad guy and they've been chasing him kind of thing. And she uses her telekinesis to like pull Chetney up and drag him back to the group and like pretends to snap his neck. And she's like, he wasn't alone. Like, everyone scatter and look for the rest of these traitors or whatever. And they have to make a group deception check. And ultimately they roll pretty poorly, so this doesn't really work out. And so we have a quick initiation, a quick scuffle. But ultimately Bell's cleans it up and continues toward the bridge. They walk past more of these defense posts and guards and are just kind of like snaking their way down. And at one point, again, they're doing this all stealthily. One point they walk up on some guards and they kind of overhear that these guards are anxious and they're worried about like getting in trouble for not helping. And one's like, yeah, should we like go help so we appear like we're on their side, or, just being nervous about it. And they also notice that these guards are guarding a prisoner like in this cave. So the crew decides to come in. Again, they're dressed as Vanguard members, so they're trying to pretend like they're just members as well. And they're like, hey, shift change. You guys are taken out because Bell's want to see what's up with this prisoner. And the human guards buy it, but the Rayloran guards, not so much. So Imogen tries to make an intimidation check, like as Liliana's daughter, being like, you need to listen to me. But they're like, Odahan outranks you and your mother. So like, no, we're not leaving. So then we have another quick initiative, a quick scuffle. Combat goes pretty standard. Nothing really too important to talk about there. So they ended up defeating these Rylorans, and then they go talk to this prisoner, who's looking very rough, by the way. So F.C.G starts by casting a heal on them, and we find out that this is Ishto of Ashanador, and he's in his like mid to late 40s, white hair, tan skin. We come to find out that he was part of this crew that was sent to gather information, much similar to Bell's Hells, he presumes. And he is the only one of his crew that survived. He says he's from Eos, and they just continue talking to him, learning what they can. He does tell them that there are sigils on the ground that will turn you to stone as a defense mechanism. And they ask, why did Odahan like keep you alive? Like, what do they want from you? And he says he doesn't know. And we do get some insight checks on this, and Liam and Ashley both get a whisper. The group ultimately decides that they're going to take him along with them and just pretend that he's their prisoner now. So they do that, and we're heading back out toward the bridge, and that's where we go to break for the first half.
Cool. Well, coming back from the break, the party has essentially arrived like at the base of the ruins, like set out in front of this massive Malleus key with the bloody bridge, basically the teleporter to go to Ruidus right there in front of them. There is some discussion around kind of like looking around the ruins. This was like the Tishtan excavation site, so there's like ruins everywhere. And one of the first things they do is Orym is actually trying to locate Planesrider Wrenn. They remember the last time they were here, and so Orym is kind of looking around being like, okay, I think I knew she was like around over here, but unfortunately Matt reveals that Planesrider Wrenn is nowhere to be found. Chetney is also kind of looking around, trying to get a feel of like this base operations point. In this conversation, by the way, Matt puts down, which I think was the third board for this episode, this amazing board, which, by the way, on the Critical Role Instagram, Matt actually had a cool reel about putting this board together that you can check out. But there's basically guards everywhere, including two massive Aormaton warders as well. In looking around, Chetney's actually going to step on one of these arcane traps, which casts flesh to stone, but he makes a Constitution save and resists it. They also, the party kind of like above the board is talking about like, what do we do about Ishto exactly? Because like we weren't really planning on this guy like going to Ruidus with us, so maybe we just like use him as a diversion. And I'm full on my spiel about Bell's Hells being somewhat evil, and they're like, yeah, maybe we should just let him be a diversion or something. They're like, well, maybe we shouldn't. All that to say, Imogen has this brilliant idea to summon a Rayloran of her own, because they're kind of like still pretending to be the Ruby Vanguard. They have Ishto as like a prisoner, and they're like, hey, if we bring in a Rayloran, we'll look even more like one of everyone else. So she brings in this Rayloran, this feminine Rayloran, and Imogen actually asked the Rayloran, hey, are you friendly with these Rayloran that are actually down here that are part of the Ruby Vanguard? And the Rayloran says basically, no, these Rayloran are part of what's called the Imperium, which is the first mention of that and seems to be some kind of group on Ruidus. It's around this time as well that Odahan actually appears from the Bloody Bridge, along with a couple of Rayloran of her own, one being a Juggernaut and another one being this sort of like floating spellcaster one that Matt reveals is called a Thought Eater. And then did Odahan go back into the bridge, or did she like run off somewhere?
I think she like bounds off towards where the distraction was happening. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so Odahan basically leaves, fortunately. And the party, they basically are like Will joke, there's a lot of planning here. And finally, they're like, let's just create as much chaos as possible. So they talk about using the EMPs on the warders. They have a couple of actual bombs. And what they end up deciding to do is Imogen's going to cast Catapult on a few of the bombs. Fern's going to cast Scorching Ray, and Laudna's going to cast Fireball, and they're going to do it like on the edge of the site to kind of like draw attention over there. It's also in this conversation that Orym actually is going to step on one of the traps and fails his Constitution saving throw. But fortunately, F.C.G has 5 uses of Greater Restoration and uses one of those to remove that. So they all cast all these things. Included in this, Imogen's going to try to cast blindness on this floating thought eater, but fails, unfortunately, on that. Chaos ensues. There's 3 nat 20s on initiative, which is like probably the only time that'll ever happen. And it's, of course, it's like the least meaningful time you can get 3 nat 20s. And typically what we do in combat, by the way, if you don't usually listen to our episodes, we try to just hit like the high notes of combat just because it can last for a while.
Yeah.
So some of these high notes, the party is trying to, they don't necessarily want to go up the front stairs because there's a lot of guards near there. They decide to go up like this ruined building behind the Malleus Key. Chetney's actually going to cast Shatter on a person at the bottom of the stairs, which also destroys part of those stairs. And then the Thought Eater, which is sort of like hovering over the battlefield, immediately is going to like telekinetically tell everybody like, hey, like look alive, there's intruders here. Orem and Ishto are both going to make their way up onto this ruined building behind the Malleus Key, but they both fail strength saves from Psychic Slam from the Thought Eater, and they both get knocked off the building. And in fact, Ishto lands on Orem and has 1 hit point left, by the way. One of the warders comes over and tries to like grab the ruined building that they're standing on to try to like rip it out of the ground, but only rolls a 4. And then Fern is actually going to polymorph one of the Ray Lauren, the Juggernaut, and turns it into a cute little possum that she pets for most of the rest of the combat. Also, interestingly, too, by the way, Fern and Imogen are sort of like emanating this Ruidian energy, being so close to the Bloody Bridge. And Maddie even mentions that Fern has this interesting intermingling of this Ruidus energy with her shard of Raushan as well. There's a bunch of ballista around the arena. One of them is going to shoot Ashton, but he ends up being okay. And then one of not a ballista, but like one of the guns there is like this energy lightning gun that Chetney's actually going to jump on and shoot the Thought Eater with, and does 12d6 worth of damage. As this all goes on, it's pretty much like, hey, the whole reason we're here is not to win a battle, but to get up through the Bloody Bridge. And F.C.G. goes up first and basically like jumps through and makes his way up to Rudis, essentially. Ishto finally gets up. Divine Smite kills one of the guards in true paladin form, and then like runs away with his 1 hit point, basically like trying to like pull attention. It's also around this time we get a random interruption from Sam, who had like, you know, his drinking flask thing, and it said like, don't press this button, which Travis did, and then he got packing corn dunked on him, and you know, whatever. The Thought Eater tries to cast Dominate Person on Orem, and Matt reveals that he was going to use Orem to cast his pushing and shoving attacks to knock everyone off of this building. But Orem, although he fails, uses his Fighter Indomitable feat to reroll the fail and succeeds. And then the Thought Eater then tries to push more people off, but doesn't work. Lada will spider climb up. She'll peace out. Ashton's going to run up, grab Orem, and basically throw Orem through the portal. Does the same thing with Fern, throws Fern through. There's an important detail that the possum too makes it through the portal as well. And basically it's just Imogen and Chetney left. And Chetney, by the way, on this railgun thing, one of the buildings gets knocked onto him. So he has to use half his movement to get up. He can almost make it to Imogen, who Imogen makes it over to Chetney, casts the Scroll of Dimension Door, but not before having this awesome moment with Matt where the Thought Eater basically says, you know, we're going to find you wherever you go. And then Imogen says, we're going to kill you and all your friends, and then flips Matt off. It's just this awesome moment. Dimension Doors goes up to the portal, and then everyone arrives. Matt describes this gray and red landscape, this arrival point with Exandria encompassing 3/4 of the starry sky above them. They have arrived on Rudis, and that is where this crazy episode came to a close. Episode 82, Rush to the Bloody Bridge, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. was very I'm Ron Burgundy-esque. And again, if you are watching just the recap, we do a full episode discussion. So if you're watching just the recap, click the link in the description to see that whole discussion and let us know what you thought too. We love having conversations with you all about this. So having said that, Will, my friend,
Yeah.
good to finally be talking about this app.
Yeah. Yeah. We already kind of briefly talked about it, but it just feels like it's been eons, not like just since our last ep necessarily, but just like getting through like the last 3 episodes of Critical Role. It's felt like one a month basically.
Is it worth pausing here just for you and I already feel the same way. I already know it. So I'm kind of like, why even bring this up? But there's a little criticism against CR for like breaks and like pacing and how long it takes like for certain things to happen and like, oh, they took 3 weeks off again. What's going on? And I'm like 99% sure you and I feel the same way. And then I say something like really offensive towards Critical Role, and you're like, wait, no. But I think for you guys listening, I'm assuming a lot of people listening also feel that same way of what you and I, how we feel. But I think we got to remember this is a D&D game, and kind of like it's entertainment second. It's a bunch of friends playing D&D first. It's great that they've made it finally to Ruidus, and I'm very excited about. Okay, it feels like this is like fever pitch now. Like what the heck could be happening from this moment on?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that's like the distinction you got to sit down and realize as somebody who watches Critical Role, that it's not a TV show, like they're not out there writing scripts, even though some people think they are.
Bro, we have posted some like sound bites too, where people are like, that's proof that it's scripted. And you're just like, come on,
like,
come on, man.
Chill. So you can't have the same expectations for it. Like, oh, this storyline's dragging on forever. Like, because it's not like a television show that's pitched out to, so it is a D&D game. So I think you kind of have to like wear two different hats. It's like, I'm watching entertainment hat, like a television type of thing. But then it's also like, but no, I'm getting to watch people play D&D, which is a different experience.
And Matt, I think, has a very interesting DM process. Interesting makes it sound like there's something wrong with it, but like a very much, I don't want to say hands off. That's not really the right word, but very like you make the bed you sleep in. Is that you sleep in the bed you make? I'm making it up. I don't know.
No, like you made this bed, now sleep in it. Like
and for better or worse, right? And so like I think like pacing and timing, I think every DM has a general idea of like story notes and like potential things that can happen, but it feels like Matt, whereas I've seen other DMs be more intent on not railroading, but like, hey, yes, you have 5 options, but you really want to do this one, or this is the one that seems like the best for you. And probably not even that overt. It feels like Matt's a lot more inclined to be like, here's 5 options, and like, what's fun for you guys? What do you all want to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes that if you're wearing your entertainment hat, that leads you to being like, no, don't pull on that thread. Go this way.
Yeah.
But it's just the style of the group. So.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I don't know, I know you didn't watch campaign 2, but I think you said you maybe watched that video I made recently about Matt Colville.
I did. Yeah.
It's kind of a good example. Like Matt and Matt both have this really cool thing planned, but the group, the players didn't go that way. So we never got to see it, So it's just, I think that was well said, that Matt is, again, railroading's not, I don't want to use that word, but he definitely leaves it to the players. So like in terms of a normal TV show or movie, if there's like, certain beats that you're hitting, then you want to hit that next one. But in a D&D game, they might just turn the other way completely. Anyway, all that to say is that I'm with you. We do agree. But I have been seeing some people who are, I think, getting frustrated, and it's been exacerbated by the fact that there's been 3 weeks between the last 2 episodes, especially. But
and I don't want to minimize in the sense that, like, I have felt the pain, and I've said it on our show several times actually, of like, man, the pacing, like, can we get these things going? But again, that's from the frame of reference of I am wearing my entertainment hat, and I don't think either hat is necessarily bad. I think you just have to, because I watch Critical Role because I love D&D, but also because I want to be entertained. It is entertaining for me. So I think as long as you know what lens you're wearing at the time, I think that's okay, right? But
Yeah.
I think where there's frustration is when people confuse the two and they misunderstand that for the players, it is D&D first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just, anyway, we're
Yeah.
probably just beating a dead horse. Honestly, we've talked about this before. So
No, but I'm with you. I'm with you, and I would imagine that. Yeah, well, never mind.
yeah,
We've said it.
all that to say, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, we've made it to Rudis. We're here.
We are officially there.
And Matt's a world builder, and Matt's a lore junkie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got a little taste with the Imperium,
Yeah,
which
I
I'm
talk
like,
about that.
ooh,
Yeah,
okay. Where are we
which
going? What are we doing?
just a quick kind of like take a step back note of appreciation. Just how cool must it be, not only for Matt but for the players too, to like been playing in this sandbox of Exandria for a decade at this point, like including the home game, basically. You know, exploring, doing whatever you want. Like they do, it started in one continent. We've now been to several, but now to be looking up at that sandbox because you're on the moon. Like how
Yeah.
cool it must that be just in terms of like the grand journey of this D&D game that they've like made
Yeah.
it to that point. So I just thought that was a really cool moment and excited to see what's to come from here. But yeah, not to, I don't know if we want to jump straight there yet, but speaking of the Imperium, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about specifically.
I think this gives a good. We have suspected as much on the show that perhaps it isn't like I can't think of an expression now. I was going to say nuts and rainbows, which that's definitely not anything. But
What?
Not everyone's cozy on Rudis.
Not all nuts and rainbows, man.
If you have any Jeff Fury fans out there, you never go full beans, But anyway, we've suspected that maybe it's not all cozy up on Rudis that we saw. We think we have suggested there's probably a faction that's allied to Predathos and potentially this other faction that maybe is what we saw the Nightmare King with potentially. And it seems like that is potentially the case that there is the Imperium, which I think is kind of a funny word because it's like Imperium has sort of like a sense of vastness to it, and you have some small planet that you're you're in charge. Which I guess we don't really know how big, like mileage wise, Rudis is.
Yeah.
But you have the Imperium, and then I'm assuming we're going to engage with where Imogen's been pulling her summon Raylorin from this other rebel-esque group.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was something we've been speculating on is this is like a whole planet, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's obviously a moon, but like there's a whole ecosystem there. So like they're not all it's not all Raylorans are the same, like there's probably lots of elements to society. So it is interesting to now find out for sure that there are factions that are like not on Team Ludinus, as it were. Do you think that the Rayloran she summons is the same one every time? Because I originally thought like it was just like a random pull, but now I'm wondering if it's been like the same one.
There was one that she summoned, maybe the one in Whitestone where they were like doing a little like lore diving on Lauden's behalf.
That she showed Keyleth? Or not, that wouldn't have been Whitestone. That would have been...
No, maybe I'm thinking of that one. I don't know which one I'm thinking of, but one that seemed a lot more cold to Imogen and a bit aloof. So
yeah,
part of me wonders if it's random. I think that is possible. I also wonder if it's retcon's not strong enough, a good enough word here, because I don't think it's truly a retcon. I think sometimes as a DM, you after the fact realize there's some really easy way to tie things together. You're like, ooh, that's really interesting.
For sure.
So if the tension that I'm referring to of like, well, it doesn't necessarily seem like it's all from the same tribe, for lack of better phrasing. It could also be maybe Matt, as time has gone on, has realized like, oh, like this is a cool mechanic that she's actually summoning. Now, how would she know to summon from that group? I don't really know, but so it could be random still, but It has to be allied to her, right? So she couldn't
True.
accidentally grab a Ruby Vanguard, an Imperium one, and then like,
Well, I
kill
think
all your
she
friends.
could,
But
and it's just like been subjugated by the rules of this
true.
ritual type of thing.
True, yeah.
But yeah, that is a good point. They do seem different. Like I would, and
Mhm.
it also could be one of those things that's kind of retconned a bit that if it is the same one, but I would venture to guess that they have been different ones. But yeah, very interesting. And I like that you brought up the Ira thing because I had that same thought because we saw him meeting with the
Mhm.
Rye Lauren. So now I would venture to guess that it was probably one of the rebels, if we can call it
Mhm.
that. Which again just makes me so curious what he's up to. You know?
And it may not even be, maybe even rebel isn't even a strong enough word in the sense of, for me, like when I think of rebel, I think of, which is I think what I originally had even called them. I think of like two warring factions or like, a group trying to survive under like the boot heel of the Imperium.
Yeah, like Star
And like,
Wars, basically.
yeah. And like this planet, the moon, Rudis, has, I mean, it's been up there for 1,000 years, right?
Yeah, a while.
Um, so like it's a long, that'd be a long conflict, is all I'm saying. So part of me also wonders if it's more of like you have the Imperium, which is sort of like this autocratic, maybe people don't even fully remember Predathos or what have you, but the Imperium, that's this autocratic, like we run it the way we want to run it. And then there are, kind of more libertarian-esque people who are like, hey, I don't want to do my own thing, and
Yeah.
and then maybe that is precipitating into a full-on rebellion. We know nothing about this planet, so
Yeah.
I'm definitely like just spinning out in terms of
Yeah.
conjecture here. So,
Yeah, I mean we don't have enough info to really draw any hard conclusions
yeah.
here. Cause I mean
Having said that, it's definitely that.
yeah, for sure.
So,
It I mean it could be as simple as like, you said like they've been warring. It would be weird if they've been warring for like 1,000 years or whatever. Like maybe they haven't. Maybe this is all in the last couple of years now that this has
yeah,
started to take off. Like, we know Ludinus has been planning this for a long time, but that doesn't
right.
necessarily mean he's been in contact with Ray Lawrence planning it the whole time. Like maybe this is whatever time frame we want to give it, 5, 10 years, a year, that like they became aware of like, oh, this one guy wants to set us all free, and so maybe there's a faction that is working with him, the Imperium, and maybe there's another group that's like, hey, but like here's the thing, I know I'm rambling right now. I wonder why the rebels would be against this, because maybe like even if they're not on board with like the grand plan of it all, they are trapped on this moon, and this would
Mhm.
essentially free them. Like, do they not care about that? Yeah, maybe they don't. Maybe they know about like the side effect damage that this could cause, and I don't know. So
I mean, you're
I'm just
right.
kind of curious, like why?
Surely they would want to be freed, right? Because I mean, Matt described, it's not that like you're on Ruidus and like up. It's not like looking at the moon where like you look up and you're like, oh yeah, that's Exandria. Like Matt described it as filling 3/4 of the sky. Which I mean, actually, they're closer. Even mechanically speaking, Ruidus is closer right now because of the Apogee Solstice ritual.
Yeah,
So maybe it was a little bit more like that previously, but I mean, they certainly can't ignore Exandria. I mean, I'm sure it's at the forefront of their mind, but yeah, you would assume that everyone on Ruidus would be like, "Team, get us off this rock,"
yeah.
So
Well, now that I've fully felt that as I said it, but now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's just like no different than us being on Earth and being like, if somebody came's like, I'm gonna free you from this planet, I'd be like, what are you talking? Like, I'm good. Like
well,
if
it depends on how harsh their lifestyle is, right? I mean,
true,
which we
but it
don't
might be all
know.
they've
I
ever
mean,
known. Like again, like
right?
we don't know the history of this. Like, are these the same people that maybe were there back when this happened, or is this like 100 generations later and like
But
they've built a life there? This is all they know. Like
yeah, remember the Ray Lauren that Imogen spoke to though, who said, "I think they have dreams of like life on
yeah,
Exandria."
like that guy was pissed.
Yeah, I mean, so some of them have a clue,
Yeah,
and I mean, they look up and they see all they know is gray and red, and then they look up and see all these colors.
yeah.
Mm,
So I
So,
guess maybe there we go. Maybe that's kind of the split, is like maybe there are some people that it's like we're happy with our life here, like we're not trying to get all crazy, and then there's people like that Ray Lauren who are like jealous and like,
mhm.
especially with the connection through, because didn't that guy like say he watched Imogen's dreams, like, and he wanted to, I don't know, maybe I'm making that part up, but
I don't know.
he
Yeah.
was essentially like a jealous though, was like the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. At least ambitious to. They seemed keen on getting to Exandria, is what it
Yeah.
seemed like. So
Yeah. There's just so many, there's still so many like questions of what exactly is going on there. Like, cause if it was the scenario where it is like these same beings that potentially existed back on Exandria in the day, like it's not 30 generations later, like maybe some of them are like, I want to go home, sort of kind of feeling, you know? But that may not be the case. It may
I
be
mean, for
less
all
important.
the power and influence that Predathos has, surely you'd think he's got a lock on his own people, right? Like,
Yeah, well, he might. It does.
I'm
It
like,
seems like he's asleep, or for lack
right.
of a better word, like he is imprisoned, right? So it's not as if seemingly he's walking around the face of that moon like as a deity, you know, like as an
Yeah.
emperor. It
But
seems as if, yeah,
he's he's impacting Ruidusborn.
yeah,
Like
he
people
definitely has
aren't.
influence still, for
So I'm
sure.
like, dude, your house is in disorder, man. Like,
Yeah,
you got to make sure this is all evil, or you know. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, I guess, that he has seemingly a little bit of a blind spot, but that's too
and
strong of a word. But you
and
get it.
maybe, I mean, maybe it's not fair to say Predathos is evil. Maybe it's just the natural order of things, right? Like there exist these gods and there exists their natural predator, you know, like, so I mean I'm
Yeah,
not saying that like
your team Tyrannosaurus Rex in what's that movie?
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
You bet you were rooting for
I
it.
mean I'm not saying I'm team T-Rex, but I'm just saying that, like, you know, he just wants to be freed and is, you know, influencing things in that direction, but it might not be just like a pure
Yeah,
masochistic, like wants to see the world burn type of evil.
I think that's a fair way to put it, especially because it seems like in I don't know how this was in campaign 2, but in campaign 3, it feels like Matt has really colorized the gods in a more Greek god esque, like kind of flawed,
Yeah,
humanistic, with all both virtues and vices. So I could definitely see Predathos as not being like offset, totally evil, but yeah, more of like a natural order of things.
yeah,
Which isn't that kind of what the name implies too? Like Predathos, predator. Like every
yeah,
ecosystem has a predator and a prey. And anyway,
yeah. So so I'm interested to learn more about these rebels. Um, but kind of moving away from that slightly, we're on Ruidus now. Um, it seems like the bridge goes from point A to point B always, right? Or
mm-hmm.
could it be like they got spit out at a random part of Ruidus?
It
That's
seems
not the
point A to
impression
point
I got.
B, since it's like a fortified position that they
Yeah,
arrived at.
yeah, that's a good point. So they're really not out of harm's way, which Matt even mentioned. Like you're still in initiative order for now,
Right.
because like all those people can just walk through the bridge. Like maybe they don't for whatever reason, but specifically, like word has gotten out that there are intruders here. Odahan's not that far away, so like I'm worried
Yeah.
that like we might see her next episode. You know?
I thought we were going to get an Autohan fight like at the Malleus Key in this episode. I think the timing was great for it, but it feels like we definitely are heading to some kind of encounter like that in the near future.
Yeah,
Near future, maybe not near future, but it seems like that's like the next low hanging fruit in terms of like big encounter.
yeah. The next big boss fight for sure. I think it would have been bad if they fought her there, because like they're in the heart of the eye of the storm, right? Like
Right.
so on top of Odahan, they have to fight all these other things, ballistas and stuff. So um I
But
could see that.
here's why I expected it, because Matt's all about using the NPC to like kind of level out the
Yeah.
combat and like give his players a hand. Like every big encounter has had an NPC that Matt's had to like assist the party. We had Ishto, God rest his soul, wherever you are, Ishto. Thank you for your service. So I thought maybe we were heading to a big encounter, especially once Odahan showed up. But yeah, they lived to fight another day.
Yeah. Well, I think we still might get that encounter. Now I don't think it'll be like start of the episode happens necessarily. I mean, maybe it will since they're still in initiative order, but I imagine they at least get out of that for a brief period of time. But I wouldn't be surprised if like Autohan shows up on Ruidus very quickly.
I mean, the party hasn't really used very many resources. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like
Just whatever they used in
like
these
spell slots
these fights getting down there, which wasn't that much.
Right.
And speaking of Ishto, I'm kind of wondering if they messed up, like, because I felt like the one they didn't really fully trust him. It felt like, and it felt like Sam, like not wanting to use healing spells on him, kind of thing. And but as a high level paladin, it could have been very useful, and like he was coming with them. That was like the plan because there's really nowhere else for him to go. And I know Matt like controlled the NPC, and but I feel like the party could have been more like focused on like bringing him with them. I think Matt kind of picked up on that vibe. I don't. Anyway, all I'm saying is that they might have messed up by kind of just like letting that ally leave, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like in hindsight, like the party after the fact, you're like, why did we do that? Because definitely, I mean, assuming the NPC's like, at least level 10, high level paladin slaps, dude. That divine smite's no joke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what level he was. I'm not like that much of a D&D expert, but he did a ton of damage on that strike. Like he was definitely at least level 10, 12, I think.
Yeah.
If not higher. So yeah, hopefully they didn't make a huge mistake there. But also he's 1 HP. Like they're not just gonna let him walk away. Maybe they keep him prisoner again, but I think he might be done.
I have found that D&D players are really bad at assessing like the right decisions in the moment, even when you feel like you're like handing it on a platter in front of them.
Yeah.
One of my D&D groups recruited like a 15-year-old, like this teenager dude who I was like very clear he has no combat ability. And they're like, yeah, he's dead for sure, but he's going to come with us though. So I was like, okay,
go home.
Robbie's with you. So anyway. So yeah, who knows what happens to Ishto? Maybe we hear about him again in like a one shot down the road or something. But
yeah, I mean, go ahead. I was just gonna say, not that I don't think he was some vastly important character or anything, but he was obviously powerful, trusted enough to be sent on a similar mission that Bell's Hells have been sent on, and was strong enough to like not have been killed, and or important enough to not have been killed to get information out of, right? So like, I don't think this was some like the players are going to be punished for letting some really important person die. Not that at all. But I do think that they like, when this is all said and done, if they're like, oh yeah, we saw this guy named Ishto, then like we might find out some more about him, that he was like a great guy and like
he was the key to everything,
a trusted ally. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a satellite phone on him the whole time.
He had he's the Luxon. Okay.
All right. So what else? It's hard episodes like this because it feels like there's a lot to talk about, and then you start like processing, and you're like, well, that was a lot of planning and some combat, more planning and combat.
Yeah. I don't mean this in a bad way, but not really much happened this episode. We just went we got to the bloody bridge essentially. But speaking of like all of the planning and stuff, which this is not a slight at all. Like if anyone's played D&D, you've been there. Like it's hard to figure out what you want to do, especially in such an important scenario. You don't want to make any mistakes. But just shout out to Travis, man. He's such a good player in so many different aspects. But like on more than one occasion in this episode, he just like took the initiative when no one could make a decision, and he just went with something. Every table needs that, Now you can go too far that way too. Like a player who's just never listening, like, just doing what they want. Like that's obviously not what Travis was doing. But
I think, yeah, you make a really good insight on like that dynamic at a table where like your players have to trust you, or have to trust each other for someone to be able to do that. And it takes someone who has to be really in tune with kind of knowing, like just has good intuition on like what is the right decision. Cause like we've all had like the person at the table who's like, all right, guys, we're just going to do this. And everyone's like, no, we're not. That's the dumbest thing. Like, why would we do that?
Yeah.
But then you have someone at the table who's like, hey, this is what we're just going to do. And you're like, yes, okay, that person gets it. So I can't talk about it any smarter than that because I haven't really fleshed out the thought. But
Yeah.
Travis is obviously the latter. I mean, and like you said, if you wear your entertainment hat, it'll drive you crazy if someone isn't doing that at the table.
Right. For sure. So yeah, I mean they're all fantastic players, but just Travis especially I notice a lot is just so in tune. Like you're saying, I like that phrase. Like he's very in tune with the pulse of what's happening at the table. Like he's always, I mean, not everyone has their moments in 5 hour sessions where they might not be paying attention fully or whatever. But I notice a lot of the times Travis is always locked in, and always like celebrating other people's moments and just everything in that bag.
Yeah.
So shout out to the CEO.
He's got some cool hype man moments. That
Yeah.
I had this random thought of like doing like a soundboard like quiz for you on one of our Friday streams and being like, all right, tell me what this is. And one of the ones that I had thought about was basically like Travis, like not cheering, but like going like, oh, and then seeing if you could
have to guess the
like,
moment.
No, guess what it is. And I was like, well, Will's gonna know it's Travis because it's so
just
iconic.
like guess who it was.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant like guess the moment that made Travis make that noise. I'll be like, bro, I can't do that.
Who it is, or like what it's from. Not what it's from, like the moment, but like, oh, that's Matt. That's Matt doing a spell sound of like a certain spell or something. But anyway, so the two things I had was Travis yelling and then something else that I already forgot. But then I was like, this is stupid. So, but it's a very iconic. It is a very iconic thing. And so that's why I was thinking like Will would totally nail this.
That's funny.
But now I feel like I have to do it. But
now you've set the expectation out there.
Yeah.
The people will be clamoring. That's funny though. Sorry, I'm just reading through my notes here.
Let me look at mine. I loved the Thought Eater. It was very it was very Mind Flayer-esque.
Yeah.
You can tell Matt just played Baldur's Gate 3.
Which
no, sorry, I was just gonna say I just really loved. I loved that. I loved like the final little bits of dialogue at the very end.
That's what I was gonna say. Cool. I was gonna now again we've had this conversation in short bursts at times with the our Bell's Hell's evil, which I always like to push back that they're not evil, but I know what you're talking about. But I was gonna say Imogen's
they are evil because you would be all about it, man. You'd be like, I'm all for it. Finally, I can totally stand these people.
They've got some morally gray moments for sure. But I was just gonna say that line from Imogen, "I'm gonna kill you and all of your friends," was a bit dark, and I mean, this is a guy that was actively trying to kill them. So I'm not saying that like she shouldn't have said that or anything, but that's, there's a far cry between like, I'm going to fight you because you're fighting me, and then threatening, I'm going to kill you and all of your friends. So
it was very Equalizer 2, Denzel Washington. Have you seen that movie?
I took my headset off for a second, so I didn't hear the movie.
I said it was very Equalizer 2, and Denzel. I don't know if you remember that scene, but if you've seen the movie, but it has a very similar line where he just like cold-blooded is like, I'm going to kill you and all your friends. It's like, all right, see ya.
I think I've seen it, but it's been forever. But I kind of remember that.
It's a good movie.
They make a TV show out of it or something. I feel like they recently brought it back or something.
Why do I think it's Queen Latifah?
I think it is.
Is it?
I think it is. Yeah.
Something's off about this whole thing. And
I never watched it, so I don't know, the premise there. But yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, you're right. The Equalizer movie or show, I mean.
Like I don't remember Equalizer lore, but like, was he like an agent of some organization, or was he just like, like, why is Queen Latifah the Equalizer now? Are they just ripping the IP for?
It's apparently this is like totally off topic, but it's apparently a 1980s detective show.
Okay.
That was remade.
Okay.
Was remade and starring Queen Latifah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, she's a detective.
Was he a detective then?
No, he was like ex.
So are these Equalizers even related? Or are they just both called the Equalizer?
I think they're both just called the Equalizer.
Oh, well, there you go.
Let's see. Is Queen Latifah Equalizer same as, I should say same as Denzel? Um, I don't know. Yeah, I can't really tell actually.
Interesting. Let us know in the comments if you happen to be up on
Yeah,
the Equalizer lore.
important detail here. Yes, very Equalizer-esque,
Yeah.
that line from her. So
Yes, I was wondering if you were going to bring that up in your Bells, Hells, or Evil agenda today.
agenda, whatever. It's just more content for the video that'll never get made.
Yeah,
You
there you
know,
go.
every time I watch, I'm like, yep, there's another little clip I'm gonna talk about.
Boom.
And you know, making YouTube videos is like endless hours of work, and so then I always like think about doing it, and I'm like, do I want to eat today or do I want to make this video?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I feel
anyway,
you there. Maybe this okay. I was about to go down a whole rabbit hole about video editing software and AI and stuff, but that's not appropriate for now. Well, we can have that conversation on our own time. But maybe some exciting things happening there. To cut out some of the busy work of it. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, looking at my notes here, is these whispers that everyone was kind of getting as they approached the Bloody Bridge. What do we think that is? Because it wasn't just the Ruidusborns, which would have made more sense to me.
didn't Matt say it was the aura coming from the thought eater?
Oh, is that what it was?
I think he
I
did.
probably just missed that.
Yeah, he named it
Okay.
as one of the last people were going up into the portal. Matt mentioned the whispers and said, and then added, this aura from the thought
okay.
eater. So I think it's that.
Okay, yeah, I must have been zoning out when he said that because
Yeah.
I thought it was from Ruidus, so I was trying to piece together what that meant.
Yeah.
So was
You're
it like
cool.
a?
I think it was like a mechanic,
Okay.
some kind of combat mechanic, but
Gotcha.
it felt like there were some things that Matt had put on paper for that that opponent that didn't fully get realized, which happens a lot in combat. I did a session with my players where it was basically like a beholder, but it had this psionic cone ability where anytime you cast a spell that causes a wisdom like a wisdom or like a constitution or wisdom or charisma saving throw, it gets reflected back on anyone within 150 feet. Well, it turns out no one in my group actually casts anything that does that. They were all like con saves and like dex saves. So I was like, cool, man. So point being, I think that was a little bit with the thought eater was Matt had some pretty cool like flavor stuff that just never really happened.
That makes sense. Well, we'll probably have another chance to see it, honestly.
Right.
A couple of things. One on the since we do think it's a point A to point B for the bridge, I agree. It's kind of weird that there was nothing there. I mean, maybe there is, like we didn't have time to like explore it, but at the very least, I would think it's fair to say there's not like a enemy camp in the same way that there is on the Exandrian side. There's not like a big fort of Vanguard and Ray Lawrence like guarding this side, which obviously there may not need to be for the same reasons, but
I think there could be that Matt
we
just
didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, but because he did describe like battlements set around it, so I could see like why would there be battlements and not people demand those battlements? So like I could see like maybe Matt just didn't fully flesh out the environment because he did mention you're still in initiative, which I don't think that was just the people following through. I think it was, hey, where you've arrived is also under Ruby Vanguard control.
Yeah.
So
I mean, entirely possible that that's the case. And what I'm about to say could have just been serving as a nice little moment to wrap the episode up, but like the whole vibe of like looking up and seeing Exandria, like you would think there's like enemy soldiers like rushing towards them as that's happening, like that wouldn't be the case, but I guess we really don't have enough information to know. But
yeah,
if there is nothing there, that's weird to me.
Totally weird. Yeah.
But sure. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's weird circumstances at play to where like they're not keeping anybody from leaving Ruidus, so maybe there's no reason to have stations there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I had one other thing I wanted to say. Let me read through real quick. Oh, Party got lucky a few times in this episode. The one I wrote down specifically was if Orem had not been able to save that dominate, like I don't know what they would have done, because I doubt they just leave him, right?
Right.
And so like you're gonna have to defeat the Thought Eater at that point, I would imagine, to like drop the spell or get the concentration to break at least. So maybe they wouldn't have to beat him, but like they would have to spend a few turns trying to break that concentration at the very least, and that's more and more time for reinforcements or Odahan to show up. So
Well, F.C.G. also had the Greater Restoration, so that would have
would that have
cured it.
done
Yeah,
that? Oh,
'cause I
okay.
think it's a charm effect,
Yeah.
dominate person. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would have been one option. So it definitely went in their favor a number of times. I think almost every save they were successful on, except for that one which he re-rolled, and then him and Ishto getting knocked off the roof. I think pretty much every other one they were successful on.
Yeah.
Sometimes the dice just go in your favor, you know. So
Yeah. Good time for them too, as well. Hopefully they
right,
still got some juice in that regard, though.
you know what they say: the dice tell the story. You know, where you're just
Yeah.
like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to launch into this full conversation because we've had it a million times and we can have it again maybe after next episode, but I'm curious to see what happens now. We're on the moon. Odahan maybe coming after them, but like, where are they going to go from here? What are they going to be
Right.
able to successfully get out of here with just information? Or are we going to run into some screw in the plan? I don't know the phrase.
All
Plan's
nuts and
going to get
rainbows,
screwed up.
man.
Nuts and
You know,
rainbows, bro.
nuts and rainbows, bro.
Classic.
It's just it.
Yep.
You know. Yeah, it's gonna be a good app. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it tomorrow night, but I think it's gonna be. I think we're gonna get some cool lore pieces, which you and I always really like.
I agree.
So
I'm really excited for this next step. And you know, barring we should be out of the extended breaks, barring any unforeseen sick days or anything, because we're out of the end of the holidays at the end of the year. Um, Candela is done. Not that there won't be a chapter 4 of Candela, and not that they won't still take off the last week of the month, even if they don't. But I'm just excited to get like a nice little chunk of episodes again and figure out what's going on here
when we
on
got Calamity,
Roots.
Calamity was Calamity on off weeks, or was it like a 4-week break to do
It was a
Calamity?
4-week break.
Okay, I gotcha.
Um,
So we could get something like that again,
yeah,
like a mini series, for lack of a better term.
yeah, and I think we probably
So,
will, but just at least for the short term, I imagine we hopefully are going to get a chunk of
mhm,
episodes now after these
mhm.
breaks. I feel like I had one other thing, but I can't find it in my notes. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely Friday's stream is a great time. If we miss anything that you guys want to talk about, the Friday stream is a great place to do that. You can join us Friday at 1 o'clock, where it's very casual and we just talk about what you all want to talk about. We have the Discord also, where we're always not only are we always talking about stuff like Critical Role, but we also have a live chat channel where we watch the episode live and react to it. And it's way better than Twitch chat. So
yes,
it's got a great vibe. It's people enjoying the show, people who want to be there, who oddly enough on Twitch seems like some people like rage watch it for
yeah,
whatever reason.
yeah.
So the Discord's another great place for you to check out. But yeah, I think that'll do it.
I think that's all we got. So y'all appreciate it if you made it this far, and should have mentioned this way earlier, but hopefully the recap was still up to snuff for y'all. This was the first one officially without crit roll stats as a crutch for Blake and I.
This is your first one. My last one, I thought.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I forgot it wasn't still up on the last one.
So you guys let us know if we missed anything important. Again, since there's no nice crit roll stats recap to refresh our memories with. I tried to make sure I was doing good notes, but y'all let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's all we got. We'll see you guys Friday, I guess. Alrighty, y'all. See ya.